hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc McIver official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc McIver. Welcome to Night School here on the Marc McIver official YouTube channel. We hold Night School, where we break down the most controversial subjects, most engaged debates, the most interesting topics going on in the world today. And tonight is no different. Did you miss me? You had to. You had to. Or maybe you didn't. You could be really happy that I've been gone. But everybody, it's been about a week since I've seen you. It's the longest we've gone without night school since we had night school. And I apologize for the sudden departure. Last week I got really sick, and the recovery took a little bit longer than I thought. And y'all know it's been a rough month. Anyway, we talked a little bit about it on air. Between the mental health stuff and the physical health stuff, it's just been a bit of a struggle. But I'm doing the best I can, and I'm happy to be here with y'all. Y'all have no idea how happy I am to be here with y'all. Y'all are my literal favorite people in the whole world. I love being in conversation with y'all. I love sharing with y'all. I love talking to y'all. It's been a long day. Right now, I'm feeling like myself. I'm feeling like 95%. It's been a long day. Today, we recorded the Joe Budden podcast all day. You can check out the new episode probably at midnight tonight at worst. Probably at worst, you'll see it tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Karen D, I'm laughing because she said we were just silently cursing you out while watching on the JBP. You got to understand the way the JBP thing worked. We shot JBP last Tuesday, and then the clips came on that afternoon. I even left the clips interview, and I am a clips fan, but I couldn't stay for the interview because I was feeling so sick. I came home, and I haven't shot anything since. So just so you know, I wasn't fronting on y'all. And then Friday, we don't do night school, so I was back on the JBP. So, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I also want to shout out to my mama. Sunday was her 86th birthday. We had a birthday party out there. So, Mom, I love you. Thank you for being you and making this all happen. What else I want to talk to y'all about before we get started? That's about it, man. I'm going to get right to it. We got a big show tonight. We're going to flow, as they say. We got a couple stories. We're going to talk a little bit about Epstein's brother who accuses Trump. We're going to talk about these ICE charges and how they have fueled Representative MacIver's rise. I also got some of my friends, get a little help from my friends, as they say. Was that Joe Coker who said that? I don't know. We'll figure it out. I think that's right. Oh, let me look. A little help. Yeah, Joe. Is it Cocker or Coker? I always say Coker. Is it Cocker? I hope it's not. Anyway, we'll find out. Y'all leave it in the thing. Anyway, shout out to everybody who's watching the Marc and Ian show, by the way. New episodes pretty much every week. You're getting to watch a little bit of my thespianism. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. Yes, I know the Beatles did it originally, but I'm talking about the version that comes on the Wonder Years. That's the version my generation know about. I'm talking about that Winnie show. And if y'all my generation, when you talk about the Wonder Years, you're talking about Winnie. But that's another story for another time. Shout out to Dr. Umar. We got, what else we going to talk about tonight? We got a lot to talk about. I'm going to get right to it because I'm tired and I want to get to bed, but I want to talk to y'all so badly. Again, I got a little help from a couple of my friends who are going to help us get through all of these stories. But I want to start tonight with an important story. It is, Representative LaMonica McIver, a freshman Democrat out of New Jersey. She just shattered fundraising records after being charged for allegedly assaulting an ICE officer during a protest in May. Now, McIver and other Jersey Democrats were doing a congressional visit to Delaney Hall. That's an immigrant detention center in Newark. But when Newark's mayor, Ras Baraka, tried to join, things got heated. Y'all remember, y'all saw the headlines, y'all saw the images. The cops arrested him. Now, body cam footage shows shoving, yelling, chaos, all between the protesters, lawmakers, and law enforcement. And then the shocker happens. The feds dropped charges on Baraka, which is not really the surprising part, but they did hit MacIver with a federal indictment. They claim she assaulted and interfered with law enforcement. Now, MacIver says, of course, this is all political. She stood up and she said, "I didn't slam nobody," calling the charges a straight-up attempt to criminalize congressional oversight. She pled not guilty, and the trial is set for November. But here's the twist. That indictment has turned her into a fundraising machine. Before the ICE drama, MacIver's money game was all right, it was chill, you know. But in Q2 2025, she's raised over $750,000, more than she has ever raised, not just in a quarter, but total. If you added all the money up, it don't equal to that. And over 60% came from small dollar Democrats nationwide. That means this isn't just a local reaction. This is a nationwide reaction. The grassroots seem to have her back. Now, the trial is in November, but with $628,000 in the war chest and 2 top-tier lawyers, she ain't backing down. In fact, she might turn this fight into a movement. The question always is, what is the movement going to be? Because Democrats, while they have been loud and boisterous and on the right side of the issue at a certain level, they also have been cowardly on the immigration issue. They've not fully spoken up. And when we look at the oversight of the last Democratic administrations, we've seen a lot of messiness at that border. Y'all don't want to hear it, but Kamala Harris wasn't good at the border as VP. You don't want to hear it, but Joe Biden was not good at the border as VP. You don't want to hear it. Obama was the deporter in chief. Again, we're not. It's all relative at some level, but we can't get into this mode where all we do is point out worse Republicans. We got to be honest about the fact that Democrats have been terrible about this. But at this moment, the fundraising is up, and maybe it means that in the midterms, Republicans can be handled. The power can be mitigated because of what's going on. Anyway, we'll get to it. We will get to it. Let's move on to another story because I'm moving fast. I'm here for a good time, not a long time, to quote the favorite artist of one of my upcoming guests. Epstein. It's a name that we have been hearing for too long without hearing enough justice. Anyway, Jeffrey Epstein's own brother just said what millions have been thinking, that Donald Trump might have had him killed. Now, again, I'm not saying this. Jeffrey Epstein's brother said this, and he said it straight to Piers Morgan's face. Marc Epstein, brother of Jeffrey Epstein, came on Piers Morgan Uncensored, and he named names. He said Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Russell Vought, all of them Trump allies, all of them connected to the Epstein case. And then he said what a lot of us saw as the quiet part. He said, if they're covering up for somebody, who do you think that might be? Now, as you know, Jeffrey Epstein died in federal custody in 2019. The official story was that he unalived himself. But from day one, it ain't smell right to most of us. No cameras, the guards were asleep, broken bones in the neck from being hanged. It never fully added up. Now Trump's people shut down the idea of a client list. They're saying not that they can't find the client list or the client list is being investigated. They're saying there wasn't one. They dismissed all the talk of blackmail, and they said that there is no, quote, credible evidence of anything shady. Of course, Elon Musk, who was in a deep bromance with Donald Trump but fell out of it, he called foul. He's not buying it. He says it's because Trump is on the list. That's his case. That's his take, not mine. But even the MAGA people are starting to speak out because, you know, don't nobody love a good conspiracy like a MAGA person. And don't nobody love a messy, deep state conspiracy like MAGA people. So they think Trump is covering something up. And his brother, Marc Epstein's brother, said, look, don't rule anything out, especially Trump himself. Trump says there's nothing to see, but the silence from his camp, it is deafening at this point. Piers Morgan asked the question out loud. He said, do you think they're covering up for Trump? Now, it's the right question. Once in a while, Piers, right. I want you to hear what Marc Epstein's response was before I bring in the big dogs. All right. Check this out, though. I apologize for a little tech problem. I ain't been to work in like a week, so, you know, I get confused easy. Actually, I always got confused easy. Anyway, here we go. Check this out.
Message, Marc, to President Trump.
Let me finish. You got Bondi, you got Patel, you got Barr. All of these people work for Trump. Okay, so if they're covering up for somebody, who do you think they might be covering up for?
So you think they're covering up for President Trump?
People look at all of us. Everybody is looking at little pieces of this and coming up with kind of theories. But people really take the time because there's a lot of facts There's a lot of information. People who take the time and really investigate this thoroughly all come to the pretty much conclusion that maybe Trump was behind this.
Wow. Well,
Maybe Jeff was killed to quiet him.
you think President Trump has something to do with Epstein, with your brother being killed?
I wouldn't write that off.
Exactly. Don't make it
Because
sound
if you
crazy.
look at all of the evidence we have and all of the facts, not opinions, and all of the facts, that wouldn't be something I would dismiss.
I mean, that's an extraordinary thing to say, but there is zero evidence that Donald Trump had anything to do with your brother's death.
Well, somebody did. And who, again, if you look at it's sort of maybe circumstantial, but if you look at all the people trying to make it look like a suicide, look, they just released a video of the door, up to the tier, and they're trying to make people think that that was the door to the cell, showing that nobody went in or out of the cell. The video that was recently released was a door to the tier, the one that Bill Barr referred to. Now, here's an interesting fact. I asked years ago for the videotape from that very camera from 10 o'clock at night, the night before, until noon the morning that he was found. Because that would show who the last people on the tier were when they left and locked up the tier. And it would also show the condition and the circumstances when they took his body off of the tier to the infirmary. I also want to see the video from the infirmary. I haven't been able to get anything. I was initially told that I couldn't get it because it was an active investigation, so I couldn't get access to it. After the investigation was over, I asked again, okay? And I have in writing a letter from the...
See, this is where it gets difficult, right? Because there's a way that even Piers is engaging this that makes the dude sound like he's a crazy person or like he's stretching the boundaries of credulity. And it's not the case. This is entirely reasonable. It's entirely reasonable. It may even be the most likely circumstance. I'm not making any accusations. I'm only saying I get how somebody could end up there. Bill the Bunny said, please, God, do not let my brother look to expose my killer on Piers Morgan. The sad part is that might be your only option if it's a deep state involvement. The Epstein case is not just about one or two people. The Epstein case is about deep amounts of harm done to the most vulnerable people in our society, done by the most powerful people in our society. So the powerful are going to do everything they can to cover it up. That's just a fact. I don't know who's on that list. I don't know if anybody y'all care about is on this. I don't know. But what I do know is there's more to the story than meets the eye. Anyway, that's it for that. I want to move on now to talk about some other stuff, man. Because we're not just going to come back here and talk about politics. I'm just going to talk about deep state conspiracies. I want to bring on my team so I can be a little bit just on bullshit. And who better to bring in than my friends? But I couldn't find them. Come on. Come on. Come on.
I hurt my feelings.
No, it didn't.
Okay.
To my left, you know him. You've seen him in all the magazines. You've seen him in all the videos.
All the videos.
He is a storyteller. He is a content creator. He is an extraordinary man. The streets call him Jameer Paul. And so I'm going to call him Jameer Paul.
No.
Welcome to Night School, Jameer Paul.
The streets of France. Thank you, Marc Lamont.
And to my right, y'all seen her in these academic streets. Y'all know her from the days of Gossip.
Oh yeah, let's go.
Yeah, you thought we forgot. You thought we forgot.
Wow.
Nah.
Nah.
Nah, she'd be everything from the Journal of Higher Education to pasa.
Wow.
She's an authoress. She's a dancer. She's fresh from, where were you? DC? No, where was the Delta thing?
It's in DC.
Fresh from DC, where she was representing the sorority of Queen Elatia FAH in command.
Let's go.
Go.
So many things to talk about with the authoress, the intellectual, the great Dr. Treva B. Lindsay.
Hi, folks. Hey,
Oh,
to be back.
oh.
Man, I ain't seen y'all in a month of Sundays. Where y'all been? Why y'all ain't been on night school?
Wow.
It feels hurtful. I feel like y'all.
I don't like you. No, I'm like, no, there's been a lot of things going on.
That didn't go where I thought it was going to go.
I don't like who you are as a kid. No,
That's fair. That's fair.
Wow, hit him with the first off.
Whoa.
Well, I got some stuff to talk to y'all about. Now, before we go anywhere else, I know some people came on just to talk about this thing that I'm about to talk about with y'all. This thing. Can we talk about Nicki Minaj for a minute? We're gonna get to the latest part. But let me get to. I'm gonna write a little band. I'm adding new banners. That's why I'm just getting back up on this horse, so I'm a little slow. The first question I had to ask was, is Nicki Minaj okay? And I asked that with love. And I mean this, for the last few weeks, I've watched Nicki tweet about Rock Nation, sort of taking almost a page out of Tory Lanez dad's book, It Will Crumble. I've seen accusations. I've seen her come after Desiree Perez. I'm not getting into the who's right and who's wrong of it. I don't know enough about anybody's business to have an opinion on that. But I'm watching Nicki's behavior online, and it seems in some ways not completely out of step, but in some ways uncharacteristic. She seems to be unraveling a little bit. My fear is that she's unraveling on Twitter. Now, it could just be, as somebody told me today, she got new information. She's just using her voice. She's not afraid of the big dragons of mainstream media anymore, so she ain't gotta be polite. Other people are saying, nah, this ain't right. Have y'all noticed anything? Have you seen anything, Jameer? You're in these social media streets. What do you see?
I don't know if it's necessarily uncharacteristic though, like of Nicki. I mean, I've seen her on X specifically, like engaged in conversations like this and kind of like spiraling, but it's been for like a few years though. So uncharacteristic, I don't really know about that. But is she okay? I don't really know about that. I don't know her personal business, but this seems consistent along the lines of like patterns that I've seen before. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I've kind of seen some of this story play out before.
I've seen some of it play out before too, and Treva, I try to be mindful of how we talk about particularly women artists, because we often set double standards in response to their behavior, in response to how we think and talk about their actions. And honestly, there are men who've done far more. We talk about, we could look at Kanye and those people, but I hold Nicki to a higher standard, a higher moral standard, a higher talent standard as an MC, a lot of things. So, this is coming from a place of love. But I'm like, is she becoming staunchly pro Cocoa Puffs?
So I'm going to avoid offering any kind of clinical diagnosis that I'm unqualified to do to talk about whether she is okay or not. I think the behavior that we're seeing is not okay. And I think it's deeply troubling. I think that we have seen this in various forms before over the last few years that has kind of looked like an unraveling on social media, on Twitter, now X. We've seen these kind of vicious attacks and like long posts that you gotta kind of parse through. And it's someone who's so good with words, right? So there's this part of this that makes it like this disconnect between the coherence and cogency that we're used to from someone as talented as she is as an MC, to these posts, which are all over the place, hard to decipher, usually full of incredible vitriol, often at other women. Although, again, in the last week, there's been more directed, of course, at Jay-Z, given her more recent allegations about what happened with her and Tidal, etc. But I just see a person whose career early on I was such a big supporter of, and I've just seen what I've witnessed on some level, this really nasty mean girl behavior. And I want to couch that in the ways that we talk about that within the framework of like misogyny and understanding the ways that women are pitted against each other, all of that. But I've just seen really, really, really mean girl behavior from her, and really just antagonisms that feel unwarranted, not beefs, not back and forths, not just battles, but real antagonisms that seem to go from somewhere. And when we saw this, I guess now a year ago or however long ago it was, where there was the kind of social media dust up between her and Meg Thee Stallion, it was like a 72-hour ongoing thing of posts and talking and Queen Radio. Where
it felt almost manic to me. I mean, let me not use the clinical language.
Right.
It felt like a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, and we've heard everything from drug usage, for people being like, can we get her some better booger sugar? I don't know. But like, there's something happening that feels really just unhealthy and unwell, whatever that means. And as like a sister, I want her to get whatever she needs to be healthier and in a better place. But I also I can't evade the accountability that is here for like just the negativity that's there, which doesn't mean she might not have been treated unfairly by Jay-Z. I'm not making any claim.
I have no idea.
I'm not making
something about the approach of it.
But I am saying like, there just seems to be these unravelings around all of these other artists, and particularly artists who have a certain level of visibility at different points, at different critical moments in their careers, that makes it feel something's off. And
Boxy Brown, 6900 said we shouldn't take people like Nicki seriously. At the end of the day, she's a pop star. That's stupid. We should take her seriously, or at least we should not take somebody seriously because they're a pop star. That's ridiculous. Defund the police and the fact that Marc gives any time to this celebrity gossip drama BS is very sad. You know, I hear you. I disagree. I think it's important to give time to this. I think it speaks to bigger issues in our society. And you know, for some folks,
talking about wellness, right? We're talking about whether this person is okay, and we can sit here and talk about these parasocial relationships that we have with celebrities and that we map that out. But how do we talk about folks in our own lives who we see going down paths that are really antagonistic and unhealthy and unwell? And I think there's a way that we respond to these social media moments, of course, with some level of interest and like intrigue that comes with celebrity. We live in a culture that does that. But we're also talking about like, what do we do with this? What do we do when we see someone who we care for? And in certain people, I'm talking about whether that's her fans or just like as a Black woman, like seeming to spiral in ways that feels unhealthy and unproductive. How do we hold space for caring for her while also being like, this is not okay, right? How do we hold those things simultaneously? So recognize that someone can be harmful and that they may in fact be in danger. Like those two things are coexistent realities, I think, here for Nicki. And that's my most generous read, because really I'm like, what in the world is going on, girl?
And that's sort of how I'm reading it too. And that got me to tonight, or all day for the last few hours. Nicki Minaj and SZA have been going back and forth on Twitter. And to be clear, most of it is Nicki. I'm not assigning blame. I'm just saying Nicki has tweeted more characters and words than SZA has. It started, just to give you all a quick a synopsis. It started with Nicki sort of tweeting about what's one boy's name from TDE? It'll come to me in a second, but just, she was just tweeting about different things, different people, an exec in particular. But there's just been a lot of stuff. What's that?
Top?
No, not Top. It wasn't that. It'll come to me in a second. So anyway, so Nicki's going back and going on, and at some point, you know, some of the vitriol was on SZA, some of it was on Doechii. Even it was again a very interesting set of choices, but that's not where I'm going. I want to take it a step back because this is where I thought things got a little weird. SZA tweeted this, which I thought was nice. I'm not saying SZA's innocent here, but she tweeted this, and you could take it however you want to take it, right? SZA tweeted this. Mercury retrograde. Don't take the bait. LOL. Silly goose. Now, I would assume that that's in response to Nicki Minaj. I can't say that it's not, but it doesn't seem like the heaviest thing. It wasn't that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, Nicki responds, "Go draw your freckles back on, Bookie. Justice for Demarie, deposition Perez." She's been talking about Desiree Perez, the CEO of Roc Nation, for a long time. Liar, liar, pants on fire, sounding like a fucking dead dog. So immediately going after SZA, attacking her face, you know, etc. I'll show you a couple more. I'm not going to read all these, but you see Nicki is going pretty hard in the paint against SZA now. SZA, didn't go super hard back. She said something like, "Nobody's, messing with this goofy shit you're talking about," or something like that. She eventually wrote this. "Let me go back to being calm and shy and meek. Y'all have a blessed night. See you tomorrow for night 2, Paris." And Nicki wrote back, "Shut up, ugly." She then tweeted some other things. Again, I'm not going to read all of them, but you can see she's tweeting different things at different times. When and it became very like competitive. It became some of the stereotypical kind of back and forth fighting that I don't want to see. But I think the question I have for y'all is, I love Nicki, but at what point do we say the way she's representing herself in these spaces, or the interaction she's drawing with other artists, is unhealthy or problematic? Even if she's right about everything she's saying in terms of criticizing the industry, what do you make of Nicki in terms of how she's engaged these other artists? Dr. Lindsay, I'll go to you first.
I mean, I don't like it. It's something about the kind of intergenerational thing that's happening here. Like, these weird attacks on women that are like 10, 15, something like 20 years younger. Like, I just think about like me going off on one of my students. It just seems wild to me to think in that way. And that doesn't mean you stand for disrespect. If someone is disrespecting you, going back and forth, we can keep it on bars. We can keep it moving in a particular way. But I'm also just like, I can't do this. Like, sis, we can't ride for this. Like, it's nasty. It's ugly. It's vicious, and it's unnecessary. Like, when I'm really just not fucking with you, I don't have anything to say about you. I'm not studying you. I'm not thinking about you. I don't know what you put on your face. I don't know what you've done. I'm not pulling tweets for 30 years. Like, I'm not doing any of that. I just don't fuck with you. And for Nicki to have the stature that she has in the game and has had a run that is like unfuckwittable. I don't think that's debatable. For her to be engaging like this at this point just seems like, sis, why are you self-sabotaging? Why are you tarnishing your legacy? Why are you engaging like this in a way that just diminishes the greatness of your talent for all of this other stuff? It just seems just so, I mean, it is. It just feels like a self-sabotage. It feels like a self-own. Like, no one's doing this to you. You are putting this out there as how you want to be seen in this moment.
Yeah.
Jameer, is it too simple to say that Nicki seems to find beef with every female artist that's out there, every woman artist that's out there?
I don't think it's too simple to say, but I think that there's a lot of validity to it just thinking about like Nicki's career, you gotta remember, like when she first came out, she was really one of the only ones, like really one of the only ones. And you could say she's a generational pioneer. Like, say what you want about Nicki Minaj, but like she's a generational pioneer. By the time like she really got through the door, and was really like up here, she was one of the only ones. I remember like being like watching the BET Awards. She won like every year, like 8 years in a row. But her influence and her power and her signature sound and, you know, the shoulders that she stands on, of course, but like for her generation, she like opened the door for all these other women to come in here and really like just flood the industry. Now, if somebody, I can understand, like we talk about the dynamics here, you got somebody that is 15, 20 years older, not directly in the spotlight or at least the public eye as she once was, and there's a whole new generation of women. Like, I could understand, not agreeing, but I could understand this very much attitude of, I'm not irrelevant, like I'm still here, I'm still me, I'm still, and not saying she is, but I'm saying like we've seen this cycle before with artists, specifically women. New hotness comes along, is groundbreaking. The other generation is, you know, diminished, and people kind of discarded, call it old, you know, and it's almost like we're erasing everything that this person has done. And so, like, I'm not saying that's the reaction that she's given, but that's how she treats every female rapper, pop girly kind of interaction that's not on her side. She'll like go after you viciously. And
her side seems to get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was thinking about was the kind of generational baton passing that's happened in hip hop, you know, for all the stereotypes and controlling narratives of black womanhood, which gear around, you know, which center around them being petty and competitive and all this other stuff. When I think about Lil' Kim, you know, one of the patron saints of hip hop, the generation before her welcomed her in and still love her. The Lights and the Latifahs,
yeah,
and the Yo-Yos, you know, they showed love. And when Foxy and Kim came in, I kind of expected them to show love to the next generation. I'm not saying they didn't per se. It's not for me to say. But I guess what I'm wondering is how much of this is consistent with the history of hip hop and how much of it is different than how women have been to each other in hip hop.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's something here because I want to both like focus in on women and also expand the way that this happens across genders in hip hop, right? It's competitive. Sure. It's blood sport. Like, I'm okay with that. There's a way that happens, but it's like, could a ladies first, you know, ladies first, or could Not Tonight remix like happen right now? And not just in terms of who's on it, but who's in the videos and who's
ladies
in the
night.
Right. Right. And I just think for that, you know, I think the new girls is really interesting. Like I could imagine a thing with like Doechii, Meg, Flo Milli, rap. Like there's a bevy of them doing the damn thing in various lanes, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool to see. And Nicki is neither in the cohort before her or the cohort after her. She, in that sense, is cohortless, right? Which made her peerless for a while in a particular way as a female MC, because we do gender hip hop in that way. To say that instead of recognizing her as a peer in the 2010s with the other rappers who were thriving then, she becomes singular as the female rapper, right? And I think that that's part of our like analytical deficiency and thinking about that era of not putting Nicki against whoever else is out there, and only thinking about those dynamics.
Would you consider Remy her peer?
Huh?
I know Remy initially came out, you know, earlier, but where do you position Remy in relation to her in terms of I'm not even talking about talent, I'm talking about terms of like generational status and.
I mean, Remy gets locked up, so that becomes like. Remy is like bridge generation. She's definitely out before Nicki. She definitely has hits before Nicki. It's a thing. And then she definitely, I think they would have been more peer, more than cohort. They're not a cohort, but they would have been rappers in a particular way had Remy not been locked up, right? And so I think in that way, like I can get there being this sense of like, you know, as someone who's like a solo, right? As a Delta, right? I'm a solo, right? It's just me on my line. Like my relationship to sisterhood could be one of two very disparate things, right? I could be like, I can do this all by myself. I'm that girl. I'm this, that, and the third. And like, I'm a Delta woman singularly. Or I could really pour in and like want to reach forward and reach back to figure out and create this kind of fictional kind of cohort despite not having LSs. And I feel like Nicki came through the kind of hazing of hip hop without licenses. And so she didn't imbibe a sisterly ethic that I think really moves with her. And so even the women that she chooses to align with are never folks who would ever be directly in competition with her for being as skilled or as dynamic or as talented as she is, which is why I was like, oh, the Nicki Meg moment. I was like, yeah, that's going to be a short-lived moment because Meg can rap. Like Meg can really rap.
Yeah.
And so that tension was going to surface anyway at some point, because I don't think a lesson that Nicki learned, and you can see this in her fans from the Barbs and the way the Barbs rally around her, is that like that's who she pours into and who she feeds from. It's not from getting that respect or love from other women in hip hop. So I feel like there's a lack of a sisterhood ethic that she's embraced as moving through this. And it's just a totally different kind of thing for a lot of those sisters. We saw Queen Latifah come out on stage with Meg, right? We saw that moment. We saw Rhapsody like rapping about all of the different rap girlies and mention the Megs, the Cardis, the this. We've heard Cardi shout out Rhapsody on different platforms. It's like, why aren't y'all blasting her and putting her on, right? We've seen Doechii say this, that, the third, and be there with Lauryn Hill. Like we've seen these moments. When have we seen that moment with Nicki?
Yeah, and to your point, like her cohort was up like men, for real. Like her cohort was with other men of that, like with men of that time, and she did not have to have this kind of sisterhood, or there was no baton to pass. Yes, there were women who were doing their thing, but like Nicki Minaj clearly was the star of that particular generation, and what a generational run it was. Like she's one of the best MCs, like as a whole, just in general. But like you talk about female MCs, she's, you know, like a lot of people have her on that Mount Rushmore, and rightfully so. But like, I don't think her success or her recognition or her superstardom like granted her rights to be like, all right, now I'm gonna pass the baton. Because for a long time, like I'm sure that, you know, not saying she would have, but there was nobody in the race for her. So I could understand the attitude that she's coming away with, especially like when people are trying to like go like take her, in her mind, she the queen, you know, and now the landscape is so different that there is no just one person who sits, one woman specifically who sits on the throne. Like it's the most diverse landscape we've ever had, and that's a landscape that Nicki Minaj has never been a part of. So, like, again, if this is her mindset, I'm like, okay, I'm putting the pieces together, but it's sad no matter what, because like she don't gotta go out like that. Like Nicki is, and her run, like just her like cemented in hip hop history forever. But when you not the new hotness, people don't know how to let that.
It gets tough. And BZ writes and says there's a difference between healthy peer competition and outright contempt for someone wanting to come in and bring their own essence to the game. I think a lot of people are feeling that this doesn't feel like real beef as much as something else. Isaac Hempsey just gifted 5 memberships to the channel. Thank you, Isaac. Everybody grab those memberships if you're in the chat room or in the chat. Well, we want to do that. There's a question coming in for you, Dr. Lindsay. It said, but from Below the Bunny, how did you make it emotionally through America, goddamn? A combination of stunning prose and honesty with deep citations, 11 out of 10. And for those that don't know, Dr. Lindsay has written a wonderful, wonderful book called America, Goddamn. And it's brilliant, but I also know how hard it is to write about trauma and violence, both at the interpersonal level, at the spectacular level, the macro kind of stuff. All of it is hard. How did you make it through emotionally as you're telling these wrenching stories?
Village, people checking in with me, having a real self-care practice while writing it as quickly as I've ever written something so that it was out of my hands. I think I never wanted to be desensitized to what I was writing, so I had to actually just be with it and go through it with the folks I was writing about, and to remind myself that as I was writing, their loved one might pick up this book. Their person who has to move forward with their lives, grieving the loss of a person or grieving their livelihood lost or whatever the loss was, that they could feel themselves in this, and my intent to kind of hold them warmly. And so for me, it was very purpose driven, but it was also rooted in an ethic of care. And that meant developing a real care process for myself during it. And I'm thankful for friends and family who made sure I was okay while I was writing a book like this.
Yeah, because it can be heavy and draining and hurtful and all the things. Before we go, I want to ask y'all just a couple more quick questions. Again, this is somewhat light. Did y'all hear about this Azealia Banks, Conor McGregor thing? And there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. I know I'm not just trying to be messy tonight, y'all. There's a...
It feels so messy. Well, messy.
No. Y'all know me well enough to know.
To know it's messy?
I am maybe the least messy person either of you know.
You just be saying shit sometimes, and that is not necessarily, that's not true at all.
That's totally true. So, according to the records, according to Azealia Banks, Azealia Banks, artist, wonderful rap artist, social media figure, cultural commentator. Azealia says that she received naked DMs from MMA star Conor McGregor. She didn't just say that. She posted on Twitter. She posted his tweets. He apparently sent to her a picture of himself naked and wrote, "Don't be a rat, because all rats get caught." Then later on, he said, "Lifting weights." Now, Azealia Banks, of course, responded to this ostensibly unsolicited dick pic by saying, "How are you going to send a B some crooked dick pics, then threaten her not to tell?" Then Notorious MMA, do you know who the fuck? So I have, again, several questions about this, but I think the first one is, what the fuck is happening?
What the hell? That's what
I mean, like, is that normal to send nudes unsolicited to a complete stranger? Is that what cyber? I'm out of that world, so I'm like, is that cyber culture now? Is that what people do? Is that the equivalent of flirting? Is it like, or is it like,
yeah, definitely
whipping it out in the middle of a club? You know what I mean? Like, to me, the idea of an unsolicited pic feels very aggressive, almost violent to me. And so I'm trying to make sense of what that means. For some, it might be fun, but I don't know. Dr. Lindsay, I'm actually, Jimmy, let me start with you. You're a guy.
Mm-hmm.
You have male friends. I mean, do you hear these stories like that people send unsolicited pics?
Nah, like, I mean, not necessarily the people I hang out with, but I also, like, I'll be honest, I haven't had that conversation, and maybe I should now. Like, thinking about it, hey, you just be sending random dick pics, bro. Like, I don't, never really had those conversations. But I think you mentioned violent, which I think is very interesting considering the work that Conor McGregor does, and it's like this is somebody who's been punched in the head
everywhere.
But also has a sense of power and entitlement, like to send pics and not even like worry about the consequence of you posting it or whatever the case is. It also, I think this also, like, as much as people like shit on Azealia Banks, people be on her heels. Like, they be really, really, really trying, like, the most, like, and you hear the stories of like these over sexualization and situations that she's been in where people have tried to force themselves on her or like do things like Conor McGregor and show her dick pics or all kind of crazy things. So I think that's very interesting. specifically, how did he end up in her DMs? And like, I just think that's super random. But
well, that's the thing. I guess when I think about from maybe it's a feminist analysis, maybe it's just a basic decent human analysis. Like, should there be, what should the rules of engagement be? I mean, in terms of like, I understand that if someone were walking down the street and did that, it would be seen as vile. It would be seen as a kind of assault, etc. I'm not trying to criminalize what he's saying. I'm just sort of trying to get a sense of how far out of bounds is this, and how in this society do we think about how to engage in intimate acts, or how to engage in acts that might make sense in a certain context, but when you tell it out of that context, it sounds crazy. Like, how do we make sense of all of this?
I mean, social media, much like we talk about keyboard warriors and social media making people bold in ways they wouldn't in person, because I don't know. I don't know. Most people who are sending unsolicited dick pics would then just pull down their pants in front of somebody that they were doing this to in real life. However, what I will,
and that's where I'm going with it. I'm like, and I hate to cut you off. I want you to jump back in. That's what I'm struggling with. I'm like, it's not the same, but also, does the internet just give you a cover and a license to do some shit that you would do if it were socially acceptable?
But what is the same? What is the same about it? I think is where we have to make the connection about why it's wrong and why you read it as potentially violent, and that's because it is a lack of consent. And it is an abuse of power in a very particular way of not having to get, like, not only are you not asking for consent, you're actually just nullifying that person's ability to consent to receiving something from you that is decidedly sexual. And I think that's very important in terms of how we talk about harm and how we talk about harm in the digital age. That as someone who's received unsolicited dick pics, it absolutely feels like, what the fuck just happened? I feel assailed by that. And I think it's important that folks recognize it as that and start naming it as harmful and something that is a violation of consent. That the digital does not nullify that, and yet people move as though it does.
Yeah.
And just as a side note, like, you could go on X right now and, like, let's say Rihanna posts a picture, or like Lotto posts a picture. If you go through that particular thread, somebody's going to expose themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just
like, are you serious?
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, people are gonna be half naked promoting their OnlyFans, or complete naked, having sex in their OnlyFans, like underneath the thread. And I've seen celebrities and like artists come out and be like, stop posting porn in my threads. But this is the world we live in. Like, or you just send it out. Whoever responds can respond. If not, nobody responds. But it doesn't stop the people from doing these things. Like, this is what's going on on X, like, every day. And it doesn't matter what kind of post it is, too. It's just that.
So I know that Conor McGregor has been accused of sexual assault. January of this year, a woman accused her of sexually assaulting her at an NBA Finals game, after an NBA Finals game in 2023. He was found guilty at a civil sexual assault lawsuit in Dublin last year. I guess, again, I'm not trying to tie connections that aren't there, but should we start to think about some of these internet patterns in the behavior people engaging on the internet with real life acts of violence? Because there seem to be, it seems connected to me.
The digital is the real world, right? We live so much of our lives in digital spaces at this point. I think it is a huge mistake to pretend that just because we have avatars and, ways that we represent ourselves, and we can construct whole lives that aren't true on there. A lot of us aren't constructing lives that aren't true. We're doing and engaging in ways that are quite similar to the ways that we engage in real life, right? In the IRL versus the URL. Like, that's not untrue. So your violation of boundaries and power and consent, those are usually fairly consistent across the board. And even when we talk about pornography, or we talk about sex work, and we talk about the digital landscape of sex work, part of what makes it sex work is like a very fundamental understanding of what consent is. Even when you go to watch particular things, if you're going to certain channels, if you're going to consume certain kinds of material, you have to say, right, I'm 18 or I'm this, or and you consent to these images, da 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 da. Like there is some kind of way that we are getting and soliciting consent in those moments. Getting an unsolicited dick, vagina, whatever genitalia you may have picked from someone who you've not agreed to receive that from is a violation of that. And you're using your power within the digital space to violate that, period.
Yeah.
Period. And usually that manifests in other ways in which you feel very comfortable violating someone else's boundaries and ensuring that your relationship to power is one of dominance, period.
That's quite helpful. Y'all, I got one more thing before we go. It's very simple. What are y'all listening to this summer? I'm guessing you're on that Drake. What did I miss?
Wow.
Jameer, I'm guessing you're listening to the clips. So, am I right? Am I wrong? Am I close?
Maybe reverse. I definitely.
Oh, wait a minute now. Wait a minute.
Maybe, I don't know. I doubt your list. I'm not gonna put you on whatever listening to. I mean, I'm listening to a lot of blues right now. Just to be honest, Sinners is still in my head in a particular way. So I've been. Yeah, that's been really something that's been really beautiful for me. But I mean, I've been listening to the clips since the album dropped. I think that press run was fantastic. Leading up to this, yes, there's cocaine raps, but it's so much more than that. I'm so deeply appreciative of the meditations on grief.
That first track, Birds,
lost parents. It's wonderful to hear Malice again back in this, the sacred, the profane. There's such an interesting mix because like 757, that area has so much talent, right? There's something in the water, right? There's so much talent that's from there that is both Southern but East Coast influence and all of these things. I see debates about that, but my goodness, I've just been really, 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 really entranced by that project, I must say, in the last week or so. That is what I've been listening to.
Monsieur Paul, do you ever feel when you listen to the clips that like you really should quit your day job and start selling drugs to the community? Or is that just me?
That's you. That's more me with like Jeezy. Like when I heard Jeezy, I was like, I gotta get out and sell it like ASAP. And my mother was like a principal. I didn't need to, but like that was my mindset. Like get some crack in my sock, hey. But let me just start off and say I've been listening to a lot, but like the clips made me like remember punchlines and double entendres like still exist within the music. Masterful, especially like just aging like wine. Like Malice said, yeah, like the body, yeah, for me. He said 3 to 9, hands 3 to 9 on the steering wheel, going through state lines, dumb diddy, dumb diddy, dumb dumb. I'm like, yo, state lines, dumb diddy, state lines. I'm like, I'm catching bars. I'm stopping.
Yeah, it's so layered.
He super layered, and I love that.
The young Dookie.
Still people that's out here like not afraid to layer things up, to throw in double on. And not saying people aren't, but I think you're not gonna beat cocaine raps from the clips with Pharrell production. It wins every time. Masterful. Justin Bieber too. I like he got some songs. I ain't gonna say.
No, that Swag album is actually kind of fire.
This is what I'm saying. Like he got some.
Like it.
He got some joy.
Nibbling on it right now.
He got some joy.
It's not as good as the last one. Look, it's 21 tracks. I thought it was well produced.
Yeah.
I don't love his voice in all the songs, but I thought there were a handful of bangers on there.
I think that's it. The voice is missing for me, and I'm actually like I actually like Justin Bieber's voice, so I was a little disappointed by that. That is what I will say.
Yeah. It's a little more rough. You can hear a little more phlegm in the voice, but it is well produced, and I think the syncopation of it like kind of flows. But yeah, like the clip's kind of been on heavy rotation.
Same.
Yeah, it's just a great moment. It's a really great moment for rap. It really just felt good just seeing a tiny desk and then banging out the grinding on the table.
Yes.
Like how that moment came to be and connecting to that from the early aughts. It's a moment. It's a feeling that they evoke. And it's like, as much as we've matured and grown in that way, there's something that's like so referential to that moment, but they also seem grown in it in a different way that makes it still work for me. I mean, I've known Pusha T has been fine. I mean, I've regularly enjoyed him in particular ways, and understanding his beef with like Drake in a different context, listening to this and his own relationship to fatherhood and like, and all of that and that feeling. But Malice,
why was he rapping like that? He was rapping his.
You come back. I'm glad Jesus was team. Wait, let's go.
What did he say? Draped in House of Gucci from serving that lady Gaga. Oh my god! Oh,
so many moments.
Yeah, it's some flash. I mean, it's fly.
Like, just come on. Like, it's just moment after moment after moment after moment, and great moments from the features that are there.
Everybody rap.
Yeah.
Everybody that they had rap.
There was that great interview where they did, I can't remember which one because it's been that kind of press run, where they were talking about the beats that they were mad that they didn't get from Pharrell. And the two both surprised me because I'm now trying to imagine them on. And then, of course, social media works harder than anybody else at doing the thing that people are asking. So it was Pastor Courvoisier. The other one was Southern Hospitality. Ooh. And so they put grinding over that beat. So if you get a chance to kind of check it out online, like it's really fascinating. They were just like, it was never sent to them like as a thing, but it just made me think about this and the selection of like beats and everything, and thinking back to like this great clip of them talking about Michael Jackson contacting Pharrell and the Neptunes about the beats.
Great story.
I sent him the songs that many of which ultimately became Justin Timberlake's first project, Justified. And he was like, nah, I want that shit you did with Nori. Right? What is happening? So I love the storytelling of this moment. Like, I love the storytelling that's coming out through this moment and the reinvigoration of that's emergent right now. That's exciting as a rap fan.
We got, well, we'll get to that in a minute. But Baby Casey, can we give some Missy Elliott flowers out while we're on this rap thing?
Oh my God.
Artist, innovator, all the flowers. I think you get no disagreement from anybody up here.
When we talk about that, the 757 is incomplete. Incomplete. Music and videos look different.
Yes.
Missy Elliott is not in it. And that is an absolute fact. And the pen game, she does that baby face thing, that Raphael Sadiq thing. She can just go through in her sets and just do the shit she had a hand in. Yeah. And that could be the show.
Yeah.
Period.
I want to say also, Missy, like, a lot of people don't know is that like her roots kind of started with like Jodeci and Devontae Swing, like found her in Timberland, and she was like in the group Sister, and so she's kind of like her bridge and her like tentacles as well reach from like so many, like not only just up and down the 757, but just like she's really like music royalty in a way that I don't think people recognize.
She's underappreciated. Even when we had the great woman MC conversation, which should just be the great MC conversation, she often gets pushed down or ignored.
That's so. I remember we were having a conversation like a while ago, maybe a year ago, and we were talking about like the greatest MCs, and I was just like, how many points do we give originality?
Yes.
People like Busta and Missy Elliott kind of get swept under the rug. Are they silly or whatever the case is? But they have proven time and time again that they can step into other people's lanes and have no problem. Very few people. It's very few people can step over into their lanes and succeed, and that's the reasons why there are only one Missy Elliott.
Yeah,
only one Busta Rhymes. So
there's no one like her. There's no one like it. Just isn't, and for the nearly 30 years that has been the case.
Right.
There's no one that blends that level of skill. And I mean, she is other people's favorite rapper. Like, ask Little Wayne who his favorite rapper is. And every interview will tell you, and he will recite lines. I'm like, that's Missy? Like, he is a Missy archivist in many ways on the way that he talks about her. And I think a lot of people are. I am, as a writer, as a creative, there's nothing like visually, she's still ahead of us. Still, there is nothing that looks like that. And she did that 30 years ago almost. Yeah. Like, I don't even know how we're having a conversation. And going back to the earlier thing, Nicki tried to beef with Missy years ago. Like, come on, Missy? Who beefs with Missy?
Misdemeanor.
Yeah, to me that's an impossibility.
It's wild.
Misdemeanor, man. And then to be at the time like a larger Black woman, dark skin, coming out of here. And I remember watching the videos, I Can't Stand the Rain, and like
classic.
Her lips would like up. Like there's nobody doing that, and she leaned into like everything about her, like the flyness, the rapping, the sexiness, like the performance. There's nobody like doing it like Missy, like for real.
Yeah, no, it's legendary stuff. By the way, I see y'all comments, y'all. Someone told me to go to bed. I'm about to, y'all. Your boy is exhausted, but I wanted to holler at y'all. Hopefully, y'all can swing back through next week or the week after, man, so we can get through some of these issues, man. There's some stuff I want to have a deep music convo with y'all. I want to cover some of these headlines, but for tonight, man, I appreciate y'all helping me understand this Nicki SZA thing. Thank you for helping me understand hip hop more broadly and getting at those latest artist releases, man. Y'all are the dopest as always. Everybody, give a round of applause to the legendary Jimmy Pont and Khayla Bilenzi.
Okay. Now everybody's friends. That makes me.
I hadn't decided.
Marc,
I was like, that was like.
You focused on the wrong part. Just take your praise. Okay. That's right.
All right. Okay.
I said good day.
Rest well, sir.
Yeah,
I shall.
Rest well.
I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Everybody, thank you for watching Night School. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're so inclined, hit the join button and become a monthly subscriber to the channel, a paid member of the channel. If not, support us in other ways. Again, hit the like button, hit the share button. Share this content with as many people as possible. It always helps, and it never doesn't help. So please share every piece of this. If you don't want to make a monthly commitment, you can go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle, and drop something in. It can be $1, it can be $1 million, it can be anything in between. All we want is something. If you can spare it, we love you, we appreciate you. In the meantime, thanks for watching Night School. I'll see you later. Peace.